How y'all doing? I'm Jack Benny Wood, should have been Cox, and I'm not here to talk about me, though. I'm here to tell you about my grandfather, the Mississippi Nightingale, Fred N. Scott. In 1922, Grandpa fell on hard times. The whole economic coast fell on hard times. They cut down all the timber. They had 28 sawmills alone in Moss Point, Mississippi. They even closed the schools. He couldn't even get a job teaching schools. So he saw an ad in the newspaper that said they'd pay $5 a day for any 14-year and up male to work in the coal mines in Delamite, Alabama. At any rate, he went up to collect his money because he and Oscar both were working. They were making $10 a day. Lord, that's big bucks. And they laughed at him. And he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you owe us money." "How can that be?" He said, "Well, that fine house you're living in, it ain't free, son." He said, "Well, how much is coffee down here?" He said, "It's 50 cents a pound back home. Well, what am I paying here? No prices on nothing." He said, $3 a pound. He said, "That's ridiculous." He said, "Well, that's the company store. You owe us money." Well, he went home, buddy. He was peed off. And he didn't cuss. And he got the back of a shoebox. And that's what he wrote, and he threw it in the fire. In the fireplace, and started to burn. And burned the title off, and it burned his name off, and it burned the first line off. And Mother got it. She was only 5 years old, and stomped it with her feet and put the fire. "Daddy, I like it. Can I have it?" He said, "Yeah, but I don't write stuff like that because it's full of hate and bile. I write about love and happiness. And that you can have it, because it ain't no good." And so anyway, 1944, 45, 46, in there somewhere, they had a restaurant. And this guy from Nashville came in and said he was a songwriter. He was looking for poems, and she physically gave him that poem. And he said, "If I can do anything with this, I'll make sure your daddy gets credit." Out the door they went, shook hands on it, and he was gone. And it was about 8 years later when Tennessee Ernie Ford came out with the song 16 Tons. It went to #1, and it stayed there for 29 weeks. And I know because we bought a television solely for the purpose that I could go home to watch your hit parade every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, and 16 Tons was #1. Mother would rub her hands together like this, go, "We're going to be rich." She thought she was going to get a nickel or a penny or something for every time that thing played in the air or whatever. And had that been so, she'd have been right. But in October 1956, that man came back, and he was driving a white Cadillac convertible. And we had just put down new gravel in front of the drive-in. And he pulled up in there and slid in, kicking up dust when I got out and come walking in there like somebody was after him. And he drove in like somebody was after him, but come walking in, striding in there, had a big, tall Stetson hat on, and had on a gray suit with sequins on the lapels. And he had on ostrich boots, and I was standing at the end of the counter, and Mother come out from behind the counter, and she said, "Did you bring me my check?" And he said, "For what?" And when he said that, my dad reached underneath the bar and pulled out a .410 single barrel shotgun and cocked it and said, "You better get out of here, mister, before I blow you all in this place." He said, "Hey man, I didn't come in here looking for trouble." Woody uncocked the gun, jumped over the bar and said, "Well, you just found it." Woody wasn't but 5'6" and went after him. He turned and run, and he fell down on the gravel. Woody hit him one time behind the ear, and he curled up like a baby and was crying like a girl, saying, "Please don't hit me in the face, don't hit me in the face." Woody kicked him and then went back in and got the gun and came back out, and I thought he was going to shoot him, but he was going to break those horns off, and when he hit the horn, instead it broke the stock to his shotgun, and the guy peeled out. A rock hit Woody over the eye. Had to go across the street to the hospital and get it sewed up, get 2 stitches in it. The next week, my mother had a complete and total nervous breakdown and spent 6 months in the Whitfield up there in the insane asylum. And my mama that went in there didn't come out. They gave her so many shock treatments. That was a different woman. She didn't even know who I was. But at any rate, I'm here now. And she told me before she died that I had I had her daddy's voice to do something with it. I had no idea that it would come to this, but that's what it's come to.